My name's Adelle Onyango, and welcome to another episode of Legally Clueless. No, seriously, I have no clue what I'm doing, but I'm pretty sure I'm not the only one. Hey you, welcome to episode 254 of Legally Clueless. If you're an OG member, thank you so much for rocking with the podcast. If you are a newbie, audio episodes like this go out every single Monday, and you can stream them everywhere you find podcasts on. You can also catch us on Trace FM across East Africa, Monday and Wednesday at 1 p.m. and 11 p.m. Fridays we're there at 1 p.m. And head over to our website, Legally Clueless Africa, so that you can sign up to join our family officially and watch our 4 seasons of our video series and our tour series as well. But before all of that, welcome if you're new. Where are my manners? Welcome to the family. I'm super excited for this episode because we're going to jump into our random convos. As I told you in last week's episode, I sat down with my very good friend Amar, who's also a DJ here in Kenya, and we talked about navigating our emotions and allowing ourselves to feel our emotions, especially what that looks like for men. We also spoke about our anxiety, and in my particular situation, low functioning depression, and how that manifested the anxiety bit when I was working in a job that was just too intense. And he had a similar experience, and he talks about just trying to crawl out of a dark place. And I loved the conversation we had. I loved that we had mics in front of us so we could share it with you. My hope is that after you listen to this random convo, you will intentionally reach out to the people that you love. Just check on them. This life is a bit hectic, and we all could use an ear that is non-judgmental to listen to us. So I'm not going to chit chat too much because you'll catch me in the random convos. So I hope you enjoy it. I figured we haven't had a random convo in quite a while, and who better to have this random convo with than a friend I made in 2015?
Yeah, I think
Ages ago, we were both selling liquor. No, like...
that sounds so sketchy, huh? Bootleggers. Bootleggers.
No, we were on a campaign for a particular brand.
Yeah.
And I think we were the two Barbies. But before I even get into that, anyway, before I get into that campaign, it's Amar. Woo!
Thank you for having me.
Otherwise known as DJ Amar.
The architect.
The architect. And so because of that, then we were both on this campaign. And I say we were both the Barbies because I feel like we
really were. We really were.
We're the Barbies of the campaign, but we had such a good time, and that's where our friendship kind of started. So maybe just to get to know you a bit better before we dive into our random convo.
Yeah.
When did you start DJing? Like, is music something you've just always loved?
So I'll tell you a funny story. So when I got back from uni, I've always had music at home. Like my dad still has a jukebox, and he's always listening to music. And then, so when I got back, I decided I am a DJ, of which I was not. We used to go to Kengele's in Lavington. One day I was like, you know what? I'm going to ask them if I can spin.
Oh, no.
So I went to the owner, Gavin, if you ever listen to this and you don't know this, now you do. So I went up to him and I was like, do you have someone who plays on Saturdays?
Yeah.
And he's like, no. And I'm like, look, I've been doing this for a really long time. Can I do it? He's like, sure, come through. So I didn't even have decks. I'd take my laptop.
Yeah.
I'd take my mom's stereo from my kitchen, connect it up at Kengele's into their system, and I used to spin like from my laptop.
Was it good?
Well, I think it was. Look, I wasn't beat matching properly, nothing. But my song selection was fire, so everyone was like, "Okay, this is quite dope." And then then Kipasa asked me to come.
Yeah.
They're like, come and spin for us. So I invested in like small decks, went to Kipasa, and then ended up at Mercury after that, and that was it. So I taught myself, and I'm still learning.
Oh,
I completely taught myself. I faked it till I made it.
So were you those DJs like the song ends and it's like silence?
No, it was
at
just
the beginning.
like the next one's coming, the lyrics are clashing. But because it was good track selection, people forget about the transition, right? They suddenly go into, oh yeah, this is the jam. So you would dodge that. That's how it, like literally how it started.
So wait, so that's what year?
I think 2012 was when I really jumped into King
Wow. So that's like 30. You've had like a 13-year spin. See what I did there? Spin.
Yeah. See, I'm used to this from you. So I'm like, It's for the listeners to go, oh my God.
That's happening. I also want to understand the architect, like the name, the architects. I don't think I've ever asked you.
No. So I'll tell you the little story behind that as well. So first it was, I had some names lined up, right?
Yeah.
And they were so bad. So I think one of them was the original pirate.
DJ, the original
It
pirate.
would just, there was no DJ, it would just be the original pirate. Piracy and original, so like the whole terrible.
Why you like jacking music?
I wasn't, but well, actually, I think, at some point we all were, right? We were
Okay.
like using torrent sites,
Yeah.
ripping off YouTube and stuff, because I didn't have the money to like buy tunes and stuff at the time, or I'd get music off friends. But yeah, so the name was, the original pirate was one of them, and it's just
Oh my
terrible.
goodness. Okay.
And then the architect came along, so I switched up obviously the spelling of the architect, and then it's because architects create. That's what I tied it into, like a DJ creates an atmosphere, creates a mood, creates mixes, creates, all about creates. I just ran with it. I'm like, this sounds dope. It's different to your architect, CHITECT. So spelling change and then architect. But I know there was a few other options in names. I'm trying to remember them, but I probably don't, because they don't deserve to be remembered. They
The
were just
original pirates, was it?
the original pirate.
pirates. Okay, I'm going to change your name in my phone book to that. Listen, we're having such a really cool conversation, and I think sometimes we have it, but on a top level when we talk about men and emotions and being real humans and being allowed to both feel and communicate emotions from a young age.
100%, yeah.
When we talk about like gender roles, you start learning these things from childhood. You will hear things, at least for women, you will hear things as girls like, oh no, don't play outside. You should go into the kitchen. And you know,
Yeah. The stereotypical stuff.
Exactly.
Like you belong here and he belongs there.
Exactly. Even just colors, like, okay, you wear this and how was your upbringing in that sense?
So growing up, look, I mean, I had the best upbringing like anyone could ask for.
Yeah.
But then obviously as you get older, then you start thinking about things differently, right? Like, so it wasn't like when I said I was going to go and spin, they had no issues. Like I've never been locked into a corner where it's been, you shouldn't wear pink. You can only go and become a businessman or any of that. So I was lucky I didn't have that. But I think in general, as guys or as male figures, we're trained to not show that emotion. And you're not told don't show it. But it's just, you find yourself there where you're just like, if you look at your dad, he's always keeping his ish together. And you're like, that's how I need to be. There's nothing wrong with that. But I think there's also nothing wrong with being able to have a cry. For the people who know me properly, I'm a crier. Like when things get messy, I'll cry. Or if it's something that's a happy, joyful moment, I'm that first guy. I'm in tears. But I've owned it. Like I'm okay with it. I can speak about it like I am now because I think it's important to be you to your full extent, right? Like I said, we weren't pushed into any corners where you told you can't. But I feel like our generation, or at least the guys that I know that I've grown up with, have that same sort of thinking, and still some of them won't show their emotions in it. And sometimes it's worrying because of certain things that I've gone through in the recent years. Sometimes I'm like, I wish like someone would just come and talk to me because people are trying to deal with these things alone, and it's not healthy.
Do you remember feeling uncomfortable maybe in your younger years when you did cry?
Oh yeah.
And was it because of people around you?
Or you'd hide it, right? Like you'd either dash and like cry somewhere else.
Yeah.
And then come back and be like, yeah, I'm good.
Yeah.
Of which now I'll just do it, like I'll do it openly, right? But yeah, it was like, I think a lot of people would not have seen you cry because you dodged it. Like you would run off and cry and then come back because you don't want to be that guy. It's not cool either. Because growing up, you're like, if a girl sees me cry, then suddenly I'm like a girl, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
So you lose points on the masculinity bit. Yeah, it did get uncomfortable from time to time. Even where you're crying, in the sense that what the situation is. Are you crying in a classroom full of people? Or are you crying while you're having lunch with, say, two friends that are girls? So the situation also is like, there's pressure in the situation.
Yeah.
So you don't want to crack at the wrong time. So excuse yourself, like quick, get it done and come back.
That's like so many logistics to think about when you're going through something emotional. Like, I just wish any human, regardless of what gender you are aligned with or are, would know that you can have that emotional outburst anywhere. We just kind of need to make spaces more.
It should
more
be,
pro that.
Yeah, it should just like let it happen, man. It's healthy. The reason we cry is there's a reason behind it. Like there's a reason for everything, right? In the sense like how we evolve, like our bodies evolve and our minds also change. And so if you have a flu, you'll sneeze, that sort of thing. You get what I mean? Like if you're crying, you're letting something out for a reason. And that's why crying is healthy.
I love crying. Like how you feel afterwards. It's like a massage.
Then you sleep though.
Yeah. Because your body's tired.
But also, have you realized it's so strange when you're sad, you listen to sad music. You're not looking for a house tune.
Yeah.
You're looking for a Boys to Men, end of the road. And it'll make you cry more, but then you'll put it on repeat.
I have a playlist for like when I feel like there's a lock, like the tears are there, but there's a blockage.
Yeah.
I have a playlist to kind of like pull them out because it just feels like I've taken a shower internally. But you know what's interesting? When you're talking and you talk about the spaces where you can cry. So you did mention around your group of friends. And I've always found male friendships to be very fascinating.
Yeah.
I know many people say, oh, you guys are not real friends because you don't talk about ABC. I don't subscribe to that. I just think it's a different form of friendship. I don't know if it's an efficient form because I'm not the one participating in it, but I just find it very interesting, the dynamics of male friendships. And so let's track that from when you were younger to like present day. What were those friendships like, and how comes, or was it safe for you to cry within your friend circles?
So look, I think growing up, we weren't in tune of our emotions as you are when you grow up, right? Because you're still kids. You're too busy getting on with messing around with life itself, right? Along with not wanting to show emotion, there's that sense of, are you mature enough to want to bring up these conversations? And I think as kids, we're not. Although kids, I mean, today's kids I'd call them advanced, right?
They're wonderful.
Because they're very in tune with how they're feeling. You can't talk to them the way we were talked to when we were growing up, because you hear it, you take it, and you move on. Today, no, there's no chance.
Yeah.
Even in a workplace,
there
is no way. Like I've worked with this newer generation, girls and boys, and it's fascinating to see that they've drawn lines. Not that I was disrespectful to anyone, but even amongst each other, even if they're working together, they're not going to take ish from their colleague. And then you suddenly realize there's a mutual respecting, which makes such a big difference. And I feel like I did learn from that as well.
And so do you feel like then as you grow and you mature, how do your friendship circles become safe enough to accommodate your emotions as a man?
Oh yeah, you did ask me that, sorry. When I get into my thought train, I'm just gone. So hanging with guys now, there's some guys who they're probably just not interested in getting to know your issues. Maybe then it's just not the right guys. But then if you do have close friends, it is, once they understand that you're okay with your emotions, then they're able to listen to your story or your issues more comfortably. Like my close friends know that I'm a softie. So when I come to them, they know what to expect. They're like, okay, he's going to tell us everything and he might even cry, but it's cool. So I think that makes a difference amongst your friends. If you're true to yourself and they can see it and they can accept it, then your conversations become easier and they become a lot more open. But in my case, that's what happens. But I don't think that's what happens a lot. I think a lot of guys just want to be the tough guys. And being the tough guy is not necessarily the way forward.
I feel like I have a close male friend who was telling, I think one of his friends got engaged and very quickly then married traditionally, and this is his friend circle. They had never met this woman. They didn't know this wedding was coming up and all of these things. And I remember being like, wait, so what do you guys talk about?
Yeah, like, so how did you miss this?
What's happening? You know, there was this kind of like feeling of, oh no, men, we don't talk. So like, if you can't talk about that, like, so what happens when do you call each other? And it's like, no, like maybe if there's work or there's a need that prompts me calling, which I found to be very, again, different from my female friendships, where my friend and we call each other, if we've not talked for 2 days, we call to like updates. I ate this on Monday. Then
I think girls do this better though.
we do.
And you're very patient with one another. Like
Yeah.
a girl can call another girl and talk about her nails or whatever it is,
Yeah.
right, for half an hour.
Yeah.
And you might not be interested at all, but you'll hang in there. With a guy, he's like, bro, what is the story? Let's keep it moving. I don't want to rub anyone the wrong way by saying it's a tough guy thing, but it does come across as I'm a tough guy, so I can do this myself. I don't need to have these conversations. I don't need to discuss anything with anyone because I'm a man. I can do this myself.
I think it's like no surprise if you look at like the male suicide statistics, where it's like, at least for our country, it's ridiculously high. And we don't even have proper data. But the little data that we have is alarming. You can draw parallels between a society that doesn't allow men to feel to very many issues, one being suicide. But like, as an adult, what are some things you've experienced that have tested you emotionally?
Okay. So obviously there's different angles to it, right? So there's obviously loss of a friend, maybe if he passed away. That's, it's almost like heartbreak. So you have that that angle of it. And then you have, I'm not a fan of this word because I feel like it's chucked around a lot, but toxicity it's a real thing. But I have seen it been tossed around a lot in situations where it's not been toxic, but people have just been like, it's just so toxic. And I'm like, But for me, it's being disrespected because I'm not a confrontational guy. I mean, you know me for so long, and anyone who knows me knows I'm not a confrontational guy. I like to just get to iron things out and keep it moving. I've also I used to have a bad temper before, and I've just come to terms with it's a waste of energy. And I've also grown up a little bit, a little bit. Just being disrespected by an individual or people who you consider is a friend or you have put trust in.
Yeah.
And when it happens over and over, it can really take you into a dark space, of which I ended up in a dark space because of certain things that happened. And you were touching on the suicide rate goes up, but you see people forget that up to suicide there's been a chain of things that have occurred, right? So you have your depression, your anxiety that can then lead to depression, which depression then can lead to suicide. You don't just wake up and decide it's a wrap, right? So anxiety and depression, I didn't know what it was. I'm a very social person. I'm an extremely extrovert. I'm always out. I think I'm always smiling, and I would imagine so, right?
Yeah.
But then I feel like a lot of us who are like this, who are always smiling and stuff, behind we're battling things which again goes back to unless you have someone to talk to about it, it's a tough space to be in. The depression and anxiety and stuff. I think it's the first time I'm talking about it on a podcast.
Yeah.
Only super close people like Amrita would know.
That's his wife.
Yeah. I've told you because we have that sort of relationship. But you see what I mean? It's not an openly spoken thing. And then, having to speak to a counselor, people are going to be like, you, how? But it's a reality. It's the reality of the situation, right? And you don't know, how fast you're spiraling downwards till you really get there and you're like, how the hell did I end up here?
Yes.
But then it's a shame because as much as we say you should not care about what other people think, the person that you're dealing with that may have disrespected you or whatever, there's no option to step out of that conversation. It's happening especially if it's in a workplace, you have to deal with it. Again, if you don't know how to deal with it, it's tough because some people will say from the get-go, I'll put a stop to it and I'm done. And then there's me who's like, wait, maybe I'm the problem. And I think that adds time to the whole situation where the downward spiral continues because all that time you're taking on thinking, is it me? Is it me? The trouble is still ongoing, right?
Yeah.
So it's a sketchy place to be in because you start questioning, is it the person who's disrespecting you or the people who are disrespecting you, or is it actually me that's doing something that's making them behave like this?
Yeah. It's so interesting, even if you put it in a workplace setting and in terms of like anxiety. I remember my anxiety like skyrocketing. I'd never had experienced anxiety before
Same.
working in a hectic work environment. And my shift at that time was the worst time ever, which is like a breakfast show. So it's morning hours. You're waking up between 4:30. You haven't really been sleeping because you're just dreading the alarm going off. And whenever my alarm would go off, I would be like bolting to the bathroom to throw up because I'm just so anxious about being in that space. How did your anxiety manifest? Like, what did it look like on a day-to-day?
Oh, so mine wasn't like throwing up and stuff. Thankfully, it didn't get there. Also, because as it was progressing and getting worse, I had good support at home, which I'm always thankful for. But it started with you get into a panic, and then as it got worse, it became shakes, and then you don't have a voice. Like suddenly you just freeze, and then obviously sleepless nights because the overthinking is on full. Like you can only think of the worst. There's nothing like, oh, today's going to be a good day. It's definitely not going to be a good day. And I don't know about this manifestation stuff, but I don't think I could have thought it away, if you get what I mean.
Yeah.
It was a reality of the situation. Like tomorrow's going to be a bad day because I know the people I'm dealing with or the situation I'm in. So I knew it was going to be a bad day.
Yeah.
But there were some Sunday nights that I just wouldn't sleep. I'll just be up and then wait for the first bird to chirp. I'm like, yep, it's morning. And then it's a like level 2 of anxiety kicks in because now it's daylight and reality has kicked in. You know, while it's still dark, you still feel safe. I don't know why.
Exactly.
It's like no one, like everyone's asleep and you're safe. The minute the sun comes up, oh my God, it's real.
Yes.
You know, through this, then you have random breakdowns, like lots of tears and like over small things or even random things.
Yeah.
There would be like no reason. You just be like, suddenly and then I can see how dark thoughts come in, not to the extent of suicide and that sort of stuff, but just how long can I do this for? You know, like there's a million questions running through your head at the same time of which you have no answers to. And then weirdly enough, if you speak to someone about it, you expect them to have the answers and people don't have those answers for you because they're not in your shoes. And see, like your anxiety and my anxiety levels are different.
Exactly.
You were throwing up. I don't know how that feels.
Yeah.
And even me explaining to you how mine was, you might be able to understand it to a certain extent, but I always say you'll never know till you have it. Like I didn't know anxiety was a thing till I had it. And then it went into depression because then I was starting to close off. So I don't want to talk to anyone. And if it's almost like if I sit at the back of the classroom, I won't be noticed.
Yeah.
The teacher's not going to ask me the question if I'm sitting at the back. And that's like how you feel when you go through these things, is like, if I keep quiet, no one's going to know I'm around. So you sort of just close off.
And it's different from who you are. I think like for me, some of the times I've known something is terribly wrong is when I close off and not talk to even the people close to me.
Yeah.
That's when I'm like, internally, the body's like saying, yes, let's do this. Let's close shop. But my mind is like, this is weird. This is not us.
Yeah.
This full panic mode. What's going on?
It's scary. It's very scary.
And how do you get to the point of, I need to get help?
Ooh.
Because I feel like that's also another thing in terms of like how society
100%.
approaches men. It's like already therapy in itself has stigma. But I feel like for men is like 10 more layers of what do you mean? This is unmanly. How can you not handle your business? So how did you navigate all of that?
I feel like our folks' generation, if I should put it like that, counseling and stuff like that is like a taboo. Like you can't, no. It's everything can be managed yourself. You don't. How can you go and pay someone
Yes.
to fix your problems? Like, it doesn't make sense. And how can someone know how to fix your problems?
And if it's not a physical injury, then it's not an injury.
Yeah. So, which is why you'll see, I find like that generation, the communication skills aren't great because they don't talk about any of this stuff. For me, it was like, I fought it. And then when at home it started getting noticed, like Amrita was like, yo, this is not, like, what the hell's going on? And then I speak to her about everything. So, but also I still have that. I'm not saying I'm completely not that tough guy.
Yeah.
I also try and manage stuff on my own.
Yeah.
But at some point I'm just like, okay, this is what's happening. I'm feeling like this. So like, yeah, I've noticed. So I remember it was Sunday. I was sitting in bed and I was having that 7 o'clock. I'm like, oh my God, it's Sunday, blues. And I don't want to see Monday. I really don't want to see Monday. And I was sitting in bed and I was like, look, let me look for help. I'm like, let me be a tough guy in this sense, where it's the tough guy goes out and looks for help. Like, I'm going to do it. So I jumped on to Google. I found an app called Sensor. I shared it with you, remember?
Yeah.
Did
you share it with me?
Yeah.
Okay.
Remember when we were just chatting about this randomly after we connected?
Yeah. Oh, yes.
And I was like, this is what I'm using.
Yeah.
So I downloaded that app. And so what it would do is it would give you breathing exercises, tell you when to journal, of which I started journaling, things to do, stretching, go for walks, all that sort of stuff that you have to clock in and clock out daily. I started doing that, and then I was doing my journals. And the problem was I would do my journals from Monday to Thursday. And then I'd be so happy that the weeks ended on Friday.
Yeah.
Friday to Sunday, I won't journal because I'm the
I'm
happiest.
good.
Because I don't have work.
Yeah.
I'm the happiest I've ever been. And then Monday, the journal starts again because I'm back to
The
where
crisis.
I was.
Yeah.
So if you look at my journal, it's really just scattered, right? It's like Monday, Tuesday. And if Wednesday was somehow a good day, I don't need to journal.
Yeah.
And then Thursday, Friday, Friday, no journal, Saturday, no journal, Sunday, no journal. So I did that. I paid for 3 or 6 months, I think 3 months.
Yeah.
And I just kept doing that. And it was helping because it was pushing me to get out, go for walks, do stuff. And then as the situation got worse, I obviously had to then speak to a counselor, take it to the next level. And then I had a good conversation with the counselor, and I did some homework on who to speak to, blah, blah, blah. And I was very open with Amrita, and I was like, I'm going to speak to a counselor. And she was like, 100%, if you feel like it, go for it. Which felt good because I know she wouldn't, but in my head, I'm like, what if it's like it can't be that serious. Like, really. But I think it was evident, like I was not myself for a while, and it was becoming a lot worse. And also, like, I'd go to a family function and my folks would be like, are you okay? And like uncles, aunts. And in my head, I'm like, as long as I'm smiling and I'm talking, there's no problem.
Yeah.
But people see more than that in your face, in how you're talking. I thought I had fooled everyone. Clearly not. It's not something that you can just easily hide. You can hide it. But it's not easy.
I think that it's a gift to have people around you who really, really see you.
Yeah.
Because then I always find it's something in the eyes. Like you can just be like, are you okay? Yeah. You know, the thing is, when you talk about the Sunday thing, I used to feel that from Sunday 1 p.m. You at least 7.
No, you don't
1 p.m.
It really kicked in on Sunday evening, but it would start on, my worry for Monday started on Friday.
Oh my goodness.
So on Fridays, like now and then I'll pour myself a small drink, chilling, end of the week. Nothing hectic, like a drink just to chill, to wind the week up. But it would start on Friday. I couldn't even enjoy my weekends to the fullest because I had this, it's like a weight. It's like Sunday's coming soon.
Here at the back of your mind.
Because you're like, look, Friday's already gone.
Yeah.
We're on Saturday.
Yeah.
That means you have one day left. You're literally, that's how you're thinking, is like, I have Saturday. Okay, shit, now it's like 6 p.m.
Yeah.
That means like, I'm going to wake up, it's going to be Sunday. And then I have this day. So Sundays, I would usually I'd wake up, stay in bed till like midday, get out, have some food, lunch, whatever, get back into bed, come back out of bed at like 6, have dinner, watch telly, and then I'm up the whole night. So that anxiety is I don't have it right now, and I don't miss it. That thing is just crippling.
It's not fun. How do you handle being given these diagnoses? Yeah. That's like plural of
Diagnosis is.
Yeah, these two diagnoses. And I say this because so recently we connected because I went through like an extreme funk, and I talked about it on the podcast. It was so difficult to like get out of bed, and I've never experienced that. It wasn't anxiety. For a long time I wasn't feeling my anxiety. In fact, I thought, I think I've worked my way out of this thing, right?
I think that's depression, though.
Yes, it was. Because then when I went to see, she's like a GP, but she's rooted in wellness, and she like full body checkup and all of that. She was like, what's happened here is, so I used to have high functioning anxiety that morphed into high functioning depression. It's very difficult to see the difference for yourself, that shift has happened, because you're still showing up, killing with work, and you're still really present. So even for you, you're not noticing anything has
It's like
changed.
a functioning alcoholic.
Yes.
Like there's people who wake up and they can neck a bottle of vodka. They can come and
you wouldn't even know.
They'll kill it and go home.
And I wasn't even having quote unquote sad moments at home. Like I was actually just like, life is great. Like my high functioning was crazy. But then what happened is, that paired with like just burnout, it switched into low functioning depression, which is something I've never experienced in my life.
I think that's what I had, where there was nothing happy about, like there's nothing fun about it.
I couldn't come out of bed. It was.
But it feels safe though when you're in bed.
When you're in bed, it's like nothing can find me here, you know?
And it's all lights off sort of bed.
Yeah.
I'm talking about dark.
Yes.
In bed, curtains closed, dark. Something's playing on the telly. You're not even really watching it. It's just
noise.
background noise.
Yeah.
And your thoughts are you're just thinking about random stuff.
And I remember, and I've been very okay with like mental health conditions, illnesses. I consider myself pretty enlightened. I don't try and put out stigma to others or to myself. But I remember being in her office and she goes like, this is low functioning depression. And my reaction, it's like all of my knowledge around these things disappeared, because like my reaction is like, so I'm dying. She's just like,
straight away.
No, what? And you know, with time, obviously, when she was like, okay, we're gonna do this blood test, this test, blah blah blah. We need to change this about your diet. We need to do this. Like we can work on this. We need to make sure you're sleeping. That's the point when I kind of like calmed down and I was like, okay. I mean, I now remembered all of my knowledge around mental conditions, but like,
I think it would be scarier, like in the way you're saying, when like there's a professional telling you have issues, as opposed to an app telling you you have an issue, you have like issues, of which I know people listening would probably be like, but how did you know? It's just an app. But then I obviously did. It was ticking off everything I was feeling. It was making sense.
Actually, all the even like the wellness coaches, yes, they do all of these blood tests and whatever, and it's to find out how your organs, or if you have thyroid issues, how is it reacting to this mental condition. That's why a lot of the tests are done, so that then she knows, okay, you have gas issues, you have acidity, which then comes from like depression. But the tools they use, you can find them on some apps, because it's like it's almost a questionnaire. It's a grading. I can't remember the assessment tools. There's one really good one that she used. I can't remember the name. It's named after the professor who coined it. But so apps actually do have those tools.
Yeah, like
as
Sensor,
well.
the one I was using. I mean, if anyone listening, check it out. It did help, because it does an assessment and then gives you a percentage of. I mean, it gives you a scale of like moderate, so anxiety, But on another note, you know what's crazy is it was also recommending like eating fruits was super important to help get out of this thing. And I couldn't believe your diet is part of this thing. And I was like, what? And because you mentioned like also the diet thing, and I was like, yeah, it just a light bulb went on, and I'm like, yeah, this diet thing's real. Like
you
fruits, eating well. Yeah.
Even sunlight. I remember one of the things my doctor was like, do you get enough sun? I was like, once this thing started, I would take my blanket to my garden and like just sit in, under the sun. So she's like, okay, then that's good. So even how much sun exposure you're getting is a big deal. It contributes to your mental health.
There's this, it's a thing called, something weather, climate depression. I don't know.
Seasonal. But I think understanding how, for me, at least that's one of the year's lessons, is understanding how my mind and spirit affect my physical body. Has made because I don't eat well, you know that.
You don't even finish your burgers. That lunch date, you ate half a burger.
So now I've been like, oh my goodness, I do have to have this. I can't eat this. I have to have more of this. And I used to understand that on an anxiety level, but now I'm understanding it just on mental health in general. The certain things that your body needs, or if you're going through anxiety or some form of depression, your physical body reacts by, so for example, I would have a lot of gas. I would have acidity. What else did I have? I wasn't sleeping because I had high cortisol levels. And then because my body was feeling like there's something wrong and we've never felt this, so what the heck is going on? There was a lot more blood rushing to my brain. So I wasn't going to sleep. Even if I was counting sheep or doing meditation, it was not going to happen because chemically, internally, my body was like, nope, we need to stay awake because something could go wrong. I had the sniffles. And I used to, because I live in a cold area, I'd be like, yeah, it's because of where I live. But my doctor then explained it to me that because your body is preparing for war, because something is wrong, it produces more mucus to cover the lungs, etc., and like really important organs. So you do have sniffles, but it's because you have depression. Like it was just so
that's crazy,
fascinating to understand how the body first is always on your side and it's reacting to where your mind is, you know? So then I wonder, maybe in closing, what do you wish for other men when it comes to safe spaces? Because certain mental health conditions, they're not certain, they're not gendered. You know what I mean?
Yeah, they're not.
And the issues that we're facing in present day environments are also, they hit all of us, right? So what do you wish could change for men in terms of safe spaces?
I just wish that like anyone listening to this or listens to it and then even forwards it to someone else, or just speak to people or write things down as well, just get it off your chest, because carrying this weight is at some point you're going to sink. And I know there's people who turn to maybe alcohol or other things. Your worries, you can't drown your sorrows. They absolutely float in alcohol. So I mean, there was a point where like even if I was feeling really crap and I would be out on a weekend, I would be having most fun when I'm having drinks, because like now I'm in a happy space, right? But then that then can lead to dependency and stuff. Thankfully, I don't have those issues, but people can find they're happy with using this or that to keep them floating. Conversation, it's all about conversation. Call your friends, speak to them. WhatsApp is there, but speak to people, not just chat, because we've become so complacent with the whole chatting thing that we don't even meet each other because we're able to just chat. And that's not okay. Meet, have lunch, finish your burgers.
I was going to say, okay, away from the burger, that really helped me because like I was in bed, unable to get out. And then randomly I remembered I was meant to call you back and it had taken me 2 months. I hadn't given you the call back that I had promised. And I was like, okay, let me just chat to him and be like, hey, like, how's everything going? I know I owe you a call. And when you asked me, how are you doing? Like my mind wanted to say, oh, I'm okay. But my fingers betrayed me. And they're like, we're not fine.
But, it's weird because I was so happy that when I received that honest message.
Yeah.
Because now I know like, okay, now we need to meet. Now we need to have these conversations. So I wish that everyone gets the courage to be able to just, if it is a message or it's picking up the phone, send a voice note, whatever it is, or, catch up with someone, talk about things, because everyone has their own issues. It's only fair to listen to everyone's story.
That's what I was going to say. Like, as much as we're saying reach out and talk, but even when you're on the receiving end, like really show up for your friends as well, now more than ever. There's a lot everybody's dealing with. If you notice a change in behavior, maybe somebody hasn't been able to reach out, but you can see like either they're acting out more than usual or maybe their drinking has increased. Like just kind of find a warm way to kind of check in or just sometimes you don't even have to ask the question. You can just say, hey, let's go for lunch. And in a safe environment, someone will kind of find a way to open up to you.
Yeah.
So I guess what we're trying to say is like we all just need to be extend more grace and be more present to each other now.
And I think let the people you care for know that you care for them. This last month, has been mad. Like people like a friend has passed away, a cousin's passed away, and young, like 36, 44, and I'm like, life is short, man. If you look at your WhatsApp conversations, it's just banter. But how often in that conversation do you say, yo, I miss you? Or, or let's just catch up for lunch.
Yeah.
And make that effort. I think the more you hang out, actually, the more it is likely that you'll have these conversations. It's because it's become such a invisible world that we live in, if you know what I mean. Like, we're just all behind these screens that you don't feel like it's the safest space to have these conversations. There's just not. But when you're sitting together, like face to face, and you do it once, twice, thrice a month, suddenly you feel like, okay, I do know this person and I do want to speak to him about this.
I feel check in with your friends. Let this be the random convo that reminds you to do just that.
Absolutely.
That's it for this episode of Legally Clueless. You can share this podcast with your friends. You can keep it for yourself. I'm not judging. Just make sure you're here next week for the next episode.